Hi everyone, welcome to this video in a series of videos on the signaling and dispatching system of the SLS Railroad. This video is going to cover train tags. And we're going to cover things such as how to place a train tag on the dispatcher's panel, how to move that train tag around the panel manually, how to delete a train tag, and how to add a train tag to the list so that you can add a train to the panel that's not normally in the list during a session. Okay, as we've detailed in other videos, if you right-click on a section of track, you'll notice you have this list that comes up, and it has Occupy Block, Grant Track Authority, Grant Out of Service, and Position Train. We're going to concentrate mostly on Position Train. Here you will see that we have a list of all the normally run trains on the SLS Railroad, including the helpers at the top of the list. These are in alphabetical and numerical order. Let's suppose we have the 924 RV that's just called us ready to go to Riverton. And RV means Riverton, and that's down here. I will concentrate on those in just a little bit. We click on that with a left click, and left click accept. We have our train tag that shows up, but I didn't click on it in the right place. So moving it is fairly simple. You put your mouse pointer over the train tag, left click and hold, and drag to where you want your train tag to be moved to. And then you release your mouse click and it will drop to where you left it. Train tags are a little funny in that they can only be put in certain places. So I couldn't just put it up here and drop it, it won't go. I can't put it up there. Sometimes you can put it on where text is, and that works out quite well. So you just have to kind of play with it and kind of move it around, but it wants to be on lines. Train tags will follow along with detection. And so I'm going to occupy this block, and then I'm going to occupy the next block. We're assuming he had a good signal. When I occupy the next block, you'll notice that the train tag follows along. We are going to call a route out of the Sage siding at East Sage. Now I'm going to occupy that block. Notice the train tag moves again. So the train tag will move along with occupancy. And now I'm going to unoccupy these blocks, and the train tag will stay in the last block in which the train stopped at. Now, train tags don't always track perfectly. A common scenario where a dispatcher has a train tag that doesn't track properly is where a train runs a block. Let's suppose we have the 924 RV who is on approach to this block. We've given a westbound route to, say, the 113 who's westbound, and we're going to go ahead and enter that train on there, and we'll occupy the block. Notice that I just had to move it out of the way so that I could occupy the block. Okay. If the 924 RV runs the block, and we're going to show this here, notice the 113 block moved forward. The computer does not know what direction or who took the block. All it knows is there was a detection at the East Sandy Creek Go West. Therefore, it moved the 113 RV away. So that train, the 113, could very well have just entered the West Bridge Intermediate block, and 924 may have ran it, but it still thinks that the 113 RV actually is proceeding into his OS, which it's not. Now you're going to start to see that there's some issues and whatnot. You'll have to sort that out on the radio with the crews. Sometimes the dispatcher will find with a longer tag, such as the Amtrak, such as the 7HDA CSG, that you're not going to be able to click on the signal. It can kind of get in the way. Well, there's a fairly easy remedy for that. Just know that that's your occupancy if you had one there. We'll place an occupancy right here. And I can't click on my train tag, so just move your train tag out far enough. It's not going to affect anything. Call your route, and then place your train tag back on. Then you can call your route beyond that, and then the train tag will follow along as your train occupies the succeeding blocks, as we can see here. And I'll unoccupy that block. I'm going to pull that clearance back, and we're actually going to route up into Atlantic City, and we're going to go on to our next little item that you have to concern yourself with if you're dispatching. Train tags will not go into dark territory on their own. They have to be manually put in there. And the reason being is the computer doesn't know anything beyond that, so it's not going to make an assumption that it doesn't know. So all it knows is that the train was routed into there and occupancy left. So as we can see here, if we unoccupy the block, the train tag's just going to hang. So now what we have to do is just manually move it up and put it on the block in which we routed it into. Now, Notice it went red. This does not indicate occupancy. Atlantic City is dark territory. That simply indicates authority to operate in that given section of track. So for dark territory, which is the darker gray lines, here at Atlantic City, you have a small section of track up here where the RDC resides, normally off of the Sage Y. You have the helper pocket, you have the lander branch line, and you have this small section of track here at Woodruff. That's indicating that that's not detected track. That's for the Ogden dispatcher. Those sections of track, as well as the Wolf Branch block, I almost forgot about that. The Wolf Branch block down here, all those sections of track are dark territory. There's no detection on them. So this gives you just a general visual way of determining what you've given authority to which train and to the area in which the authority resides. That's all it means. Like with going into dark territory, the same thing applies with coming out of dark territory and going back onto signaled and detected trackage. So again, we're going to move our train up to tunnel block, and we're going to come up here and give a route out of South Pass. If I run and occupy the block, notice the train tag doesn't move. I'm going to have to put it down onto the detected portion, and then once my train occupies the next block, then it will track across. That's a constant when going into and coming out of dark territory. The other place we have that happen is Riverton Yard. Riverton Yard you have trains going into quite regularly. For instance, if I have a train such as the 113, it's going to do the same thing. Once we position our train, and I'm going to go in here and select him, and we're going to occupy the block. Once we occupy the East Riverton OS, and that train's occupancy clears, it's going to stay there. So we just simply drag it down and put it into here. Realize Riverton Yard is a fairly large yard. It has multiple tracks trains can come into. So you can have 2 or 3 train tags down here in Riverton while you're dispatching. So I just kind of move them around and just kind of remember where I put things so that I know. Notice that I put it down there in Lander Branch Line. Lander Branch Line again is not detected. You may have noticed that when I've been getting rid of trains, that if you right click on this tag, you have this list that shows up here. This list, and I'll make it a little smaller, this window gives you information about the train. It tells me the train symbol is 113 RVOA. It's a general freight. Its origin was Bonneville Junction. And these little boxes here give me an indication as to where the train does major work, crew changes, and other pertinent information. So I know that since it is odd number, it is a westbound, and WDF stands for Woodruff, so we know that it does a crew change at Woodruff. We know that it does work at Riverton, and we know that it originated at Bonneville Junction. So there's the origin, there's the destination right there, Woodruff. Crew gives you the ability to add a crew to the train if you want. I'll click my name here, and it will tell you who is running the train. So if I just click accept, now if I go and I click on it, I can see who the crew is. So I just hit accept after I added the name, and there's the crew that's on the train. Now, if I decided that the train was complete and I wanted to terminate it, I click on terminate train, and the train will cease off the layout. Now, if I wanted to tie down the train, I can tie down the train, and now you notice it goes purple. That means that nobody's on the train, but the train is still active on the layout. Now, if I wanted to terminate, which you're going to probably be doing the majority of the time, to terminate the train, we simply come up and we terminate train. And when we terminate train, it goes from the list. Now, if for instance you terminated the wrong train and you realized that you really didn't want to do that, not all is lost, because you will not find that train in the run list again at position train. 113 is not in here. It's been taken off the list. So to take care of that, we simply come up to trains in the main menu, go to trains, rerun train. You'll notice that I have the 113 RVOA. I canceled earlier the 7HDA CSG westbound Amtrak, but I'm not going to rerun that one. So I'm going to click on 113 RVOA, click accept, and now my train 113 should be back on the list. And in fact, there it is, 113 RVOA. So now I can just go back. You'll have to re-enter who the crew is in the train if you want, but I'm not going to concern myself with that. And I'm just going to hit cancel. Everything's back to normal. Again, same thing applies. When I route a train out of Riverton Yard, I'm going to have to move this train manually over to the first block once the train leaves Riverton. You get used to it, and just keep yourself familiar with what trains are going into and out of dark territory, and you should be able to keep track of it. So, as I mentioned earlier, there are these letters that are on the panel, and these letters represent the train tag codes that you have noticed when I've been opening the list. So, for instance, if we have the 126 RVSX, and I'm going to put that on the layout there, 126 obviously indicates, all even trains indicate that the train is headed eastbound. If it's an engine number and a helper, the train number does not mean anything. It's just the locomotive number. But 126 indicates it's an eastbound. RV meaning Riverton, and SX meaning Sioux City. So for this train tag, it tells me that the train is originating from Woodruff as it's being an eastbound and an even number. RV meaning that it goes to Riverton Yard to do work, and it continues on to Sioux City. So obviously this train tag, if it were this far along, would probably be a little too far since it didn't take the crossover to go into Riverton. Let's say, for instance, that my train tag were there, I would know that that train would need to go into Riverton, and I would need to call Riverton to make sure that they can actually take this train at that given point in time. If not, then I'm going to have to hold that train back someplace, and that's when you have to start figuring out where you're going to put trains. So that's one train tag. We'll go through the rest of them, I just won't put them on the layout. If you have a train tag such as the 55OA, OA is Oakland, so that would tell me that it's a westbound, so it would start from Bonneville Junction, and it's a hot shot, so it goes straight across the layout, does not make any stops. Let's look at another train. Coal Extra 3 AC. Coal Extra 3 is in a westbound, so it starts at Bonneville Junction, and it goes to the Atlantic City branch line, which is up here, so it goes to AC. Its counterpart will be another train that the crew will call and is listed on the train schedule as it appears next to the dispatcher's computer in the SLS dispatching office. As we detailed with our number 7 Amtrak, we also have the 8. So the 8 has SG, meaning Sage, so it stops at the Sage Depot, which is this little blue square here. We also have AC, Atlantic City, so it stops at the depot in Atlantic City, and HD, meaning that it stops at the Hudson Depot. And I was hiding it there, and it's right there. So we know that it does a station stop at Sage, Atlantic City, and Hudson before continuing on. Some trains, such as the 924 and 925s, 923, 926, those trains are all Sage to Riverton transfers, so they will have either SG, which we can see here in the list, 924 RV, 925 SG, 926 RV, oh, there's 923 SG. Our OR trains, such as OR Extra 2 SX, will go eastbound, and it's coming out of Sage, and its counterpart, OR Extra 1 SG, starts at Bonneville Junction and goes to Sage to then go into the steel mill. So that's essentially kind of gives you an idea of where trains are going. We have some for Fremont, which is the Coal Extra 8 FR, so that'll go into the Fremont branch. We have Coal Extra 15 Wind River, WR, so that comes up here to Wind River. So there's all these different trains that do different things. Coal Extra 20 ACWF, that train is going to first go into Atlantic City and then back into the Wolf branch. So we have the Coal Extra 23, which is an odd, so that one's going to go out of Wolf, and it's going to go from Wolf to Los Angeles for export. So you can use these letters to tell you kind of where things are going or where they might be doing work. If you're, if you don't know, just ask the crews, and they should be able to read their train list and give you that information. Usually during the month of February and in the month of September, the SLS Railroad runs special snow trains and circus trains, and there's other special trains at other times. To add those trains manually, or if somebody's running another special that is not in the list, you'll need to add that train to the list. If you click on Trains, Edit Lineup, you will pull up this list here, and this is the master list of all the trains that are in the program that normally get ran. If I needed to add a train, I could add it to the top of the list, and I'm just going to do that because that's an easy place to put it. I'm going to click on Train Symbol for the first one, and I'm just going to click Add Record. Now I'm going to have an open spot underneath that, and now I'm going to put in a train. Let's just call this one the Extra 75. So I'm 75, and I'm just going to put Circus Train. So there's our circus train. We won't really worry about our origin because it may not necessarily be specified to here. I just need to know that I've got the circus train. Just click off of that until you no longer have a flashing type icon, and then click Accept. Now if I come up and say that the train was going to depart out of Sage Yard, I'm going to come up here, I'm going to right click, position train, and there's our X75 circus train. There we go. Now we can run it across the layout like any other train. I can go ahead and I can terminate it, and it'll go off the layout. Again, to rerun it, I'm going to have to go up to Trains, Rerun Train, and my X75 circus train is in the list. Now it's back ready to run. And you may have to do that for a number of times depending upon how many times the train runs. That's much more common in the case of a plow if you're going to designate a plow as an odd number going west and as an even number going east. So, again, something to keep in mind. Typically when I run the plow, I just put it as a plow number, and that train's either running eastbound or westbound, and I just keep track of it. It's fairly simple. A couple more things. One, when you're getting a train onto and off of the layout both at Woodruff and at Bonneville Junction, the same thing applies as going from signal territory into dark territory. The train tags are not going to traverse, and you're going to have to terminate them when they get to the end of the line here at Woodruff and at Bonneville Junction. So that's just something you have to kind of keep in mind. So once the train hits the Bonneville Junction, once it's in my book, and I'm dispatching, once the train has hit East Riverton, I don't care about it anymore. The train's going, that's the last signal they're going to get, I just terminate the train. Same thing with going into West Bear River. Once they've hit the OS, I terminate them. So, because I know that they're essentially no longer my concern. If they call me, great, then they'll go. But, wherever you want to terminate, just don't get a whole bunch of tags stacked up here and wondering when that train's clear. Once the train's hit Bonneville Junction, and once it's hit the single track here at Randolph, after you've lined through using the West Bear River / Woodruff traffic panel, the train tag basically doesn't mean anything anymore because that train is going off into other territory. So the last thing specifically involves Woodruff. When you have a train that initially comes onto the layout, you're going to need to take your train tag, and let's say it's the 114 RVCH, and I'm going to just kind of move him out of the way a little bit, and I'm going to, oops, that's not the one I want. We're going to occupy the block here, and then move him back into place. Now, once I've done that, and I go to West Bear River and occupy the block, notice that the train tag does not transfer across. You're going to have to manually add the train tag to Bear River, and then the train will track across the layout. It's because of the way the West Bear River / Woodruff traffic panel and the CATS panel interface. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. That, again, is just one thing that you have to just memorize and work with as you're using the system. Aside from that, that's pretty much all there is to know. We thank you for watching. Have a nice day.